Hello? No, I don't think this is working.
Yeah.
No, it is. You hear me in the back? Okay, until he fixes it.
Close to your mouth.
I don't think it's going to make a difference. And so, for Gandhi, he believed that using nonviolence, the practice of nonviolence, what he called the people who practice nonviolence, who knows what he called them? What? Yeah, satyagrahis. The satyagrahis, the reason they practice nonviolence and self-sacrifice, because Gandhi was pretty tough. You had to be willing to give your life for the cause. It was not just going down to the city square and singing Kumbaya. No. Gandhi was a pretty tough guy. He would say during periods of intense nonviolent disobedience, he said, unless you people get your skull cracked, that's his words, I'm not going to even come to your funeral. That's right. He was, his view was, if you were willing to go the full distance in your beliefs, that it's going to quicken the conscience, awaken the conscience of the public, and that they will then realize it's time to act. And that was the purpose of nonviolence. I was reading a report put out by this wretched organization called the International Crisis Group. I was reading a report by them on the way over here on the plane, and they mention in the report that in anticipation of demonstrations following the Palestinian bid for statehood, that the Palestinian leadership is approaching each of the Israeli checkpoints holding the Palestinian flag to see how close they can get to the checkpoint before the Israelis start firing. And then they would only go up to that point. And I had to think to myself, that's exactly the opposite of what Gandhi was saying. The whole point of what Gandhi was saying, it sounds morbid, but that's his philosophy. You were supposed to get to the point where you're shot. And it was the fact that you were being killed or getting your skull broken, that for him was what was needed to awaken people's conscience and get them to act. But there is a second point to it. I know I have to hold this for this fellow. There's a second point. Because Gandhi said, it's not enough that your means are innocent, that is to say, you're nonviolent. There also has to be agreement on your ends. Because if the public does not agree with your goal, they're not going to be moved by your suffering. Let me repeat that. If the public does not agree with you on your goal, they're not going to be moved by your suffering. What does that mean in practice? Take the case of abortion in the United States. The polls show Americans are about evenly divided. Half are pro-choice, what's called pro-choice. Half are what's called pro-life. So let's imagine for a thought experiment. Let's say all the pro-life demonstrators converged on an abortion clinic. And they said they were going to fast unto the death unless the abortion clinic was shut down. Would that fast unto the death, would that move the hearts of those who are pro-life. Excuse me, pro-choice. Would it?
No.
No, most pro-choice people would say, I hope they drop dead. You would, wouldn't you? I can see that look in your face. And so, the point is, nonviolence as a tactic cannot work. Nonviolence as a tactic cannot work unless there's a broad consensus on the goal of your movement. It's not enough to be nonviolent if people don't agree with the goal of your nonviolence. And just to give a couple of examples, Gandhi was very determined to abolish the status of the untouchables in India. So one of his big campaigns in the 1930s was to open up the Hindu temples and make them accessible to the untouchables, what he called the Harijans, the children of God. And when he was asked, why are you fasting, Mr. Gandhi? He said, the whole idea of my fast is based on the belief that a large section of the Hindu people, they favor allowing untouchables in, but they don't do anything about it. They don't say anything. And he thought he could get them to act. He was wrong. He misjudged the Hindus, the uppercase Hindus, but he thought they were ready if he would just engage in nonviolent disobedience, civil disobedience. Gandhi had another campaign. India had a very big, I don't know if it's still, but at the time, a very big problem with alcoholism. And he had a major campaign to rid India of alcohol. And people said, Mr. Gandhi, why are you focusing on alcohol? There are so many other sins in India. There's the sin of gambling. There's the sin of going to the cinema, which was considered sinful at that time. And his answer was very straightforward, but informative. He said, the drink evil has been recognized as such by the people of this land. But the other evils are more or less fashionable. That is to say, if most people think gambling is okay, you're not going to get them to change through nonviolence. You can only, a rational political actor, he or she focuses on what can be changed because public opinion is already there. The struggle for public opinion has been won. The challenge is getting people to act on that public opinion. Well, what does that mean for the Israel-Palestine conflict? Basically it means that the question of what our goals should be is, in my opinion, wrongly put when people frequently ask, well, what do you support, one state or two states? That's a typical formulation, at least in crowds in which I